All right, so tell me if you've heard this one, and if you have heard it, how old you were when you heard it. Because I feel like this one skipped some history classes for me, and I'm wondering how many of the rest of us have skipped history class for. So March 30th of 1867, we did learn this part, the Russians sold Alaska to the United States for like $7.2 million. It was called like Seward's Folly. It was a big deal that like it wasn't seen as valuable. Then the gold rush hits. It is valuable all of a sudden. The entire time, of course, indigenous people are living here. It was not like empty ice land. There were people. Russia had been in control of those people. The United States became in control of those people. And there was a huge fur operation. Russia basically annihilated the sea otter populations before the United States got there. There were like 300,000 sea otters hanging out in Alaska, and Russia got those pelts. And then the United States continued with seal operations. Right? So here's the part that I did not understand until I was an adult. So sorry, Alaska, about how I'm going to describe your geography, but if those of us that were not in Alaska remember Alaska geography, you have the wooden map puzzle that you had in elementary school, and all the states had like outlines except for Alaska, and Alaska had like an outline and then like some ocean with like this long line of islands coming off of it, right? And all those islands are also Alaska. So we're talking about the islands, and we're talking about the tip of those islands. And World War II happens, and Pearl Harbor happens specifically. And people start getting nervous, people in the US military side, that those islands are going to be part of Japan's attack plan. And then eventually they are. Japan attacks locations on those islands. They take 10 service members as prisoners of war. They take a group of like 30 or 40 indigenous people as a prisoner of war for a minute and interrogate them in a schoolhouse before like abandoning them. There's like conflict happening there. And the US government is like, we should evacuate the indigenous people, and they're kind of back and forth if that's to protect them or to take over those locations as military bases. It turns out that it mostly was probably about the military bases because that's what happened. They put GI service members living in the villages. But they basically forcibly evacuate all of the Aleut people that are living in this stretch. These are small villages. They turn out, it's like 811 people that are evacuated. Okay, so 811 people are forcibly evacuated on boats. The first casualty happens almost immediately because one of the babies dies once on the boats, like within the first couple of nights, and is buried at sea. They take these people down kind of southeast into Alaska, and they drop them based on what villages they came from. So they keep villages together and drop them at like an abandoned cannery, an abandoned gold mine, another cannery that was like closed for the season, a village that had a big fire and been burned and not rebuilt before. And they kind of have US people supervising these locations. They have a doctor at least one of them. There's food coming in, but they're very, very rustic, not kind of adequate locations. For 80 people, there's like 3 latrine toilets and 1 tub at one location. At another location, the only toilets are like what they call tidal toilets, I guess, which is the toilets built over the ocean, and at low tide, it's a toilet, and at high tide, everything washes out. There's no hot water. There's no running water in some of these locations. They try to rebuild the pipe system, and the water coming out is so dirty that they can't use it. The dirty water causes like health outbreaks. There's measles outbreaks. There's tuberculosis is thought to be in the space. That there are like 80 people living in tiny bunkhouses, open air. There's no privacy between families. Everyone's just loaded in. And this continues for the summer of 1942. It continues for the winter of 1942. Then in the spring of 43, the U.S. government's like, actually, we still need seal pelts. Those are worth money, and we need to go get them. It's seal season. So they come back, and at least two of the camps, they come and get the men that are the sealers and take them back to the islands and have them do a sealing operation, leaving the women and children unattended at these camps without the men to rebuild during the summer when like repairs and stuff can be made, insulation could be done, stuff like that. None of that can happen. They take the doctor with them, with the men, so they leave the women and children without any medical care. And eventually the measles outbreak happens badly enough in near the end of the war that they send a woman doctor who writes back that she writes back and she's like, the children are naked. The children are covered in excrement. There's no proper toilets. There's no proper sanitation. This is really bad, y'all. And they're talking about what to do about it. The war is closing up. So these people have been here for years at this point. The war is closing up. And one of the guys that's in charge of it, in his like closing statement that he's shutting this down and sending these people back to the islands, is that he like literally writes, if Life magazine does a photo expose, we are in big trouble, right? If Life magazine shows up with a photographer and takes pictures of the conditions we've had these 800 people living in for the last couple of years, we are in, this is a catastrophe. This is a public relations nightmare. And so they pack everybody up, the war's over, and they send them back to the islands to burnt out villages, absolutely decimated population. 10% of them have died, and everybody else has been very ill, underfed, not taken care of, and they're plopped back into these villages with basically no support. They're all already, at least some of them are already Russian Orthodox, because like the indigenous religions had gone under Russian influence, and the churches and the icons are all destroyed, missing, whatever. The schoolhouses and stuff like that that had been set up are gone. A lot of the houses are just burnt because they wanted to burn them to make sure that if the Japanese did show up, they didn't have places to be. And they begin rebuilding. And that's what happened during World War II to like 800 plus indigenous people, 10% death, physical annihilation, and return to completely scorched homes all along that little set of islands. And I don't feel like I learned that, right? Like I learned about like the Japanese internment camps in the US. I did not realize that like Alaskan indigenous populations were also in internment camps that were that degree of bad. So did you hear that? And if so, when and where? Where was that history?